Hello students. So today we are going to start with the revision of class 9 chapter, that is fundamental unit of life. Now I believe we all have covered the chapter. Now we are going to start with the revision. So we'll be doing a crash course kind of a activity where we'll be going through the fundamentals, basic points of every topic. So, what is the fundamental unit of life? The fundamental unit of life is cell. As we know, life took about billion years for life to evolve. Like from the very first precursor of life to the multitude of multicellular organisms to all the organisms that we see today, the most basic unit of all this is cell. Now, what is basically a cell? Cell are the fundamental and basic structural and fundamental unit of life. Who discovered cell? Cell was discovered by Robert Hooke with his microscope that we have studied in NCERT book. And the number of the cells that work together to form tissues and organs. So any tissue or any organ is formed of a combination of cells. Now what is cellular respiration? It is the process by which the food releases energy in the mitochondria. What is mitochondria? Mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. So what happens is cells absorb this glucose from the food and burn it to produce energy. So the process of producing energy is known as cell respiration. Basically, it releases energy in the mitochondria with the absorption of glucose from the food and burning it into energy. Now the next is structural organization of cells. So basically, as we know, there are two kinds of cell, that is prokaryotic and eukaryotic cell. So what is prokaryotic cell? Prokaryotic cells are primitive and it lack well-defined nucleus. And eukaryotic cells, these are more advanced cells and have a well-defined nucleus. Now we'll discuss about cell structure in eukaryotic cell and cell structure in prokaryotic cell. The cell structure in eukaryotic cell as we discussed has the most well-defined structure. And they have cell membrane, membrane-bound cell organelles and a well-defined nucleus. And the nucleus also has its own membrane called as nuclear membrane. So the cell structure of eukaryotic cells is basically, it is, as we know, it is a well-defined structure. It has its own nucleus, it has its own cell organelles, it has an old cell membrane and membrane of the other cell organelles. And the membrane that covers the nucleus is known as nuclear membrane. What is cell membrane? Cell membrane is the outer covering of the cell, that is the outer layer of the cell, and it is made up of phospholipid bilayer membrane, and it is selectively permeable in nature, and the structure of the cell membrane is best described by the fluid mosaic model. Now the next is diffusion. What is diffusion? Diffusion is the movement of the molecules from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration. Now, how does the osmosis take place? Osmosis takes place in the selectively permeable membrane. So it is again the movement of the water molecules across a semi-permeable membrane. And it is a selective process since the membrane does not allow all molecules to pass through it, and water is usually the only free-flowing molecule across this membrane. So we have discussed about diffusion, that is the movement of the molecules from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration. Then there is osmosis. Osmosis always happens in selectively permeable membrane. What is a selectively permeable membrane? A membrane which does not allow all the molecules to pass through it, but only allows selective molecules to pass through it. What is isotonic, hypotonic solutions and a hypotonic solution? So isotonic solutions are those solutions which have the same solute and pH concentration as the surrounding body fluid or the cytoplasm. Hypotonic is in which the there is a lesser concentration of solute compared to the surrounding fluid, and this can force the cell to rupture due to the excess input of water into the cell due to osmosis. And hypertonic solution, when the cell has a high concentration of solute as compared to the surrounding fluid, and this pushes the water out of the cell, thus shrinking it. Now the cell water in plants. Plant cells are different from animal cells due to the presence of the cell wall. The cell wall is made up of cellulose and gives a very rigid structure to the plant cell. Cell organelles. The different kind of cell organelles are endocytosis. Endocytosis is the invagination of the cell membrane followed by pinching of forming a membrane bound vesicle. This is commonly seen in amoeba. Amoeba, we have discussed about the process of endocytosis. And then the nucleus in the cells. Nucleus is the processing unit of the cell, and it is a double membrane bound organelle which contains the genetic material for inheritance. It contains the genetic material for inheritance. And then the chromosomes. Chromosomes is during the growth phase of the cell, the chromatin condenses into a much thicker structure called chromosome. Next is chromatin. Chromatin is basically the thread-like structure which serves as a genetic material, and it is present inside the nucleus of the cell. It is made up of two things, DNA and the protein molecules. And the DNA consists the hereditary characteristics, information, and it is needed for the structure and the function of the organism. Cytoplasm is the fluid that is found inside the cell, and it gives the structure to the cell and houses different organelles of the cell. And then is the organelles. The organelles are the structure present in the cytoplasm of the cell that helps in several functions of the cell. Now is endoplasmic reticulum. Endoplasmic reticulum is of two types, smooth endoplasmic reticulum and rough endoplasmic reticulum. Smooth endoplasmic reticulum is basically the organelle membrane like cell organelle that plays an integral role in interpretation of the genetic information present in the nucleus. Rough endoplasmic reticulum are those that have ribosomes on it. And the ribosome is basically made up of nucleic acids and proteins, and they are the site for protein synthesis, that is breaking down of protein. The rough endoplasmic reticulum is also involved in the modification and folding of protein. Smooth endoplasmic reticulum do not have ribosomes, and thus they are not involved in protein synthesis. They are, however, involved in the lipid metabolism and detoxifying poisonous molecules. So rough endoplasmic reticulum has ribosomes attached to it, and smooth endoplasmic reticulum do not have ribosomes attached to it. What are Golgi apparatus? Golgi apparatus are called the post office of the cell. They package and transport the proteins across the cytoplasm. Then is lysosomes, and lysosomes are referred as the suicidal bags of the cell, as they contain potent enzymes that can digest a cell, and lysosomes are also help in defense by attacking a foreign object. Mitochondria, as I told you, is the power plant of the cell, powerhouse of the cell. They generate the adenosine triphosphate by the electron transport chain. They also have a DNA called mtDNA, which makes them semi-autonomous organelle. Plastids. There are various kinds of plastids present in the cell based on the pigment they like. Leucoplast, chromoplast, chloroplast. Chloroplast is the plastid where the photosynthesis occurs, and the other are leucoplast and chromoplast. Vacuoles. Vacuoles are the large vesicles that hold water or air in them and give structural rigidity to the cell. And vacuoles are common in plant cells, and in animals the vacuoles are either very small or absent. What is the comparison between plant and animal cell? The first comparison that you can think of is plant cells have a cell wall and chloroplast, which are missing in animal cells. Plant cells have large vacuoles, which are either very small or missing in animal cells. And the nucleus is present at the center of the cell in animal cells, but in plant cell it is at the periphery. So these are some of the questions. How does an amoeba acquire food? How does a plant cell differ from animal cell? We discussed differentiate between eukaryotic and prokaryotic cells. What would be the outcome in a scenario when a rupture occurs in the plasma membrane? So what will happen when a rupture occurs in the plasma membrane, that is the cell membrane? Define osmosis. We have discussed it. Growth and repair require which type of cell division? So we have all discussed this point. You can answer these points. So in the next class, we'll start with a new topic.